I am on. Hey, good morning again, folks. It's so good to have you guys. So good to see some folks I haven't seen in a long time. So blessings to everybody. Any football fans out here this morning? Just a couple. Hey, at 2:05 today, 2:05, Broncos, some of you guys know are Bronco fans. 2:05, the Broncos are playing Seattle. And some of you guys know this, Bo Nix is our new quarterback, rookie quarterback. And apologies to any Seattle fans over there. But Bo Nix is our new quarterback. Do you think he was drafted number 12, he highly touted, played really good against B team people in the preseason. You think he slept at all last night? I'm not so sure. I'm not sure. But we start the Bo Nix era this afternoon at 2:05. And I know some of you guys are going to be watching it. I'm going to be watching it at my son's and daughter-in-law's home. Thank you, Sean. But there's going to be a certain amount of excitement about that game, and you know it. And just to kind of get us into the football flavor, I am going to put 15 minutes up on the screen, and I am going to pretend, just to kind of play along with me, I'm going to pretend like it's fourth quarter. And somewhere around 4:30 this afternoon, it's going to be the fourth quarter. And I'm praying that we're going to be in the game somehow, that it's going to be close. But if we're behind and just by a little bit, you know there's going to be an intensity in that fourth quarter. They're going to play like they've never played before. But at the end of 15 minutes, there's going to be zeros on the screen, and it'll be over. It's time. It's time for Bo Nix and the team to put up or shut up, right? It's time. It's time. And I'm going to start this here in a second, but here's my promise to you. Just because I am a big fan of the Broncos, if you don't know, at the end of 15, wherever I am in the message, I'm going to stop, okay? I'm just going to end. It's never happened before on this platform, ever before. But I'm going to try it, at least for the first service. We're going to just stop, okay? Because the time will run out. There will be zeros on the screen, and I've got a screen back there. And if I could just ask your help, we're not going to stop at the 2-minute warning. If you guys could just kind of wave to me when there's 2 minutes left so that I'll know that it's time to wrap this thing up. It's time. It's showtime. It's time. So I'm going to ask our tech folks if you could start, Joy, if you could start the screen. Here we go. We all know there's time for things in this world, right? There's a time to get ready. There's a time for school. There's a time for work. There's a time for church. There's a time to make the meal. There's a time to feed our kids. There's time. For some of us, there was time to start a family. And for us, it was 31 years ago, October 3rd, to be honest. And Cindy I remember this day like it was yesterday. Cindy is 6 weeks out from her due date. Cindy's my wife. She's 6 weeks out from her due date. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, she wakes me up and she says, "It's time." And I, in my sleepy, groggy way, say, "It can't be time. It's not time. We're 6 weeks out. Go back to sleep." And my wife, with a sense of urgency, says, "It's time. It's time." And 4 o'clock in the morning we start, and 11 o'clock that day, Jake is born 6 weeks early. It was time. The scripture I want to share this morning is about time. It's from the Hebrew scriptures, Ecclesiastes 3. It's one of my favorites. It's in your bulletin, but I'll try to remember it from here. There's a time for everything, and the season for every activity under heaven. Time to be born, time to die, time to plant, time to uproot, a time to kill or be sick and a time to heal, time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. You know, I love one of the gifts of being a pastor here. I got to do many funerals, and I would oftentimes use that scripture to help tell the people's story, the funeral, a celebration of life. I would use that scripture to undergird the story of their life. I am a big story fan, and John Ortberg has taught me this. I say it so often around my family. My wife says, "You have become John Ortberg." But here's what he says, and it's the only fill in the blank that we have on the bulletin, if you've got one of those. But these are important words. Everybody has a story, and I shared this during communion. Everybody has a story. Everybody's story matters to us. It matters to our world, it matters to our family, it matters most significantly to God. Nobody gets the story they want. Everybody has a story. Everybody's story matters. Nobody gets the story they want. And I want to share some stories this morning. And I want to start with, anybody watch the Olympics this summer? I love the Olympics. I love all the events, but I love the stories behind the stories. NBC just did a great job of telling the story beneath the stories, athletes. But there was one, the gymnast from Know Nothing, Georgia. Brody Malone is his name. 24 years old. He's got quite the story. This know-nothing town from Georgia, he used to go to drive 2 hours to a town that had gymnastics. Powerful story. He lost his mom when he was 12 years old, his number one supporter. Went on to Stanford, NCAA champion. Went to the Olympics in Tokyo, didn't do so well. Messed up his knee really badly in 23, training for the Olympics, and he came back, made the team. Oftentimes he would talk about his faith, his strong faith that helped him get through. But the most powerful, before the last event, and Brody helped the gymnastics team win the bronze medal for the first time. First time I think the gymnastics team won in 16 years. But before the last event of that gymnastics all-around event, his dad came on the air and read a letter. If you saw it, you know why I'm choked up. He read this letter to Brody and the team. And in that letter, he told about some of the backstory, about that when Brody was 2, he climbed out of the crib and broke his arm. And I mean, he was a gymnast right from the start. At 3 years old, his family had so much energy, they got him into gymnastics to try to train him up, to use some of that energy. And then, he was up and coming, he was a superstar. But then at 12, he loses his mom. And that was really tough. And then as he's training for the Olympics, he messes up his knee really badly, doesn't think that he's going to make it, but he makes it back. And his dad is reading this story, and his dad looks like a lumberjack. I mean, big beard. They're recording this like in a barn in North Georgia. I mean, it's powerful. But his dad reads the story, and his dad says, Brody's just like me. We hold our emotions inside. But the dad can't get through reading the letter without breaking up. Twice he breaks up. And he just says how proud he is of his son, how much he loves his son, and how proud mom is in heaven of you, and how much mom loves you. Brody's dad gave Brody a blessing. Words of encouragement, powerful words, emotional words from his heart to Brody's heart. The blessing, the power of the blessing. We all hunger for the blessing. Words of encouragement, words of affirmation. Gary Smalley, a whole bunch of years ago, wrote a book called The Blessing. Gary Smalley was on this stage a bunch of years back, and he talked about the blessing, but the power of words, the power of appropriate touch to affirm, encourage people in our lives, especially from our parents. But we hunger it from all kinds of folks, from brothers and sisters, from a spouse, from our kids, from a teacher, from a coach. Gary Smalley shares this story about professor in a college speech class, a freshman college speech class. And just as an icebreaker for the class, he asked the class to go around and share these two things: something you like about yourself and something you don't like about yourself. And he goes around the room. There's a young woman sitting in the back row, kind of bedraggled looking. She's got red hair. She's a ginger, red hair covering half her face. And it comes to her turn, and she's quiet. And the professor thinks, well, maybe she didn't hear the question. And he repeats it, share something that you like about yourself, share something that you don't like. And it's quiet. And then she takes the hair that's covering her face, and she shows her face, and there's this birthmark covering half of her face, this irregular red, almost as red as her hair, birthmark. She says, this is what I don't like about myself. And then the professor, very pastoral, comes up to her, hugs her, and touches her face, and says, God and I love your birthmark. And then for 20 minutes, she weeps uncontrollably. And in my mind's eye, I see the class giving her a group hug. When she finally comes back around, she says, I never got the hug from my mom. My mom has never touched my face. She hungered for the blessing. She hungered for the blessing. Everybody has a story. Everybody's story matters. Nobody gets the story they want. 7 minutes left. I got to keep going. Halfway through. One of the stories I love, it's the Good Shepherd story. It's about Jesus trying to teach us about what it means to love our neighbor, what it means to bless our neighbor. And you guys maybe have known this story. It's a story that many of us, if we've grown up in the church, we know it. But let me tell the story again. There's a man, Jesus is telling us to teach us about what it looks like to really love our neighbor, what it means to encourage our neighbor and bless our neighbor. There's a man from Jerusalem going down to Jericho, tough part of town. It's like 5 points. Man gets beat up, mugged, held up, left for half dead, bleeding on the side of the road. Jewish man. A priest and a Levite, 2 Jews come walking along the road. They see the beat up man, they see him, and they walk on the other side of the road and they keep going. It doesn't say why they did it, but we can guess. Maybe they were scared. Maybe they didn't know how to help. Maybe they thought he was dead, but he doesn't help. But then the Samaritan man comes along and he sees the man hurting. And the text says he took pity on him. Doesn't ask him what political party he's a part of. Doesn't ask whether he's for Trump or for Harris. Doesn't ask if he's religious or not, if he's got a faith or not. Doesn't ask him how much money he has. Just his heart goes out to him and he gets down in the dirt with him and just says, "Are you okay? Are you okay? I'm here now. I'm with you. I got you." And he takes care of him. He bandages him up as best he can, right there alongside the road. Then he airlifts him to a Holiday Inn Express. Not really. He picks him up, puts him on his donkey, and takes him to the inn. And he spends the night with him, caring for him, loving on him, extending grace to him. And you guys know Good Samaritan, man, that's the opposite side of the tracks. The Samaritan has a bad backstory. Samaritans and Jews, they don't hang out. But this one, he crossed the line. Denominationally, politically, socially, economically, it crosses the line. And the next day, Samaritan's got to move on, and he goes to the innkeeper and says, "Hey, can you take care of my friend? He's in 202. Can you take care of him? Here's my credit card. Look after him. And if it's more than my limit, I'll come back and make up the difference. Take care of him." And I think Jesus is trying to teach us what it really means to love somebody, what it really means to love our neighbor, what it means to bless our neighbor. We cross lines, we cross all kinds of lines. When we do church close to being right, we cross that line. I want to go back to that Ecclesiastes text. There's a time for everything and a season for every activity under heaven. There's time. Every verse starts with there's time, until there's no more time. And someone says to us, we've tried everything we can. There's not much time left. There's always time until there's no more time. I got a text last Saturday from a friend, and it said, "Hi, Joe, Mom's not doing so well. And you told me to call you when the end was close. The end is close. Can you come? Can you squeeze in? And Mom may have a day or two or a week or so, but can you come?" Early this week, I went to their home. It was a great visit, and I have deep roots. This is a New York City friend. I'm from New York originally. We talked about New York a little bit. I was ordained Lutheran. She was a Lutheran growing up. We had connected. I found out during our visit that she has a love for hot pretzels. I have a love for hot pretzels. We talked about death some. We talked mostly about living. I asked her, who is she looking forward to seeing? And she's ready to go. I mean, she's so ready to go see Jesus. I asked her, who are you looking forward to seeing in heaven? And she said, my husband. Then I asked her about, a service that we'll do someday. And I asked her if she has any favorite scriptures. And she's struggling with Alzheimer's. And she said, I can't remember. And I said, well, maybe, here's one. Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters. She starts saying it along with me, and it was so cool. I said, that's one. And she said, yeah, that's a good one. I said, here's another one of my favorites, John 14. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many rooms. I'm going there to prepare a place for you. And she said, that's a good one. That's a good one. I hadn't hit a home run yet. I'm still searching. I said, how about this Ecclesiastes text? It's a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn time to dance. And she said, that's the one. You don't know it, but I'm a really good dancer. Me and my husband used to love to dance. And I said, well, I've got a daughter I'm marrying in October. Maybe you could teach me to dance. He said, I could teach you. She's really looking forward to dancing with Jesus and dancing with her husband. One of the gifts of being a pastor is to walk alongside folks and hear people's stories, especially when we meet in the conference room. Mona and I would meet in the conference room back there, and I'd just ask them about their story. We'd put a service together, but I was really, really listening to their story. Everybody's got a story. Everybody's story matters. I see 2 minutes. Nobody gets thank you, I got it. Usually they stop the clock, but it's going still. Everybody has a story. Everybody's story matters. Nobody gets the story they want. And I love putting service together. And I love to connect, really listen to their story and see how their life connects with their family's life. It's a blessing. I really believe it's a blessing when we can truly celebrate a life and remind folks how their story weaved in together with our story and with God's story. And there's always a God connection. Even if they're not quote unquote religious, there's always a God connection to their story. And I celebrate that. I remind them of that. Here's my challenge to you guys. This week, God's going to throw some people in your life. And maybe it's not this week, but maybe it's next week. But God will throw people in your life, and God's asking you to go be good Samaritan to them, okay? Love them in some real way. Bandage them up if they're physically beat up or emotionally or spiritually or mentally. Bandage them up if you can. Love on them. Hug them. Pray for them. Listen to their story. If they've got a tattoo, ask them about their tattoo. There's always a story. Usually there's a story behind a tattoo. Listen to their story, okay? I love you guys. God bless you. 31 seconds. But we're just going to be still for 30 seconds, okay? Love you guys. Fourth quarter. There's a blessing in the fourth quarter. There's a sense of urgency. I just want to challenge you. Some of you guys are still first quarter, second quarter maybe. Some of us are fourth quarter. Go be a blessing to someone this week.